Humanity had long gazed at the stars, dreaming of one day venturing into the vast unknown. The advent of space exploration had been a milestone, but even the most ambitious space missions had yet to scratch the surface of the galaxy's true potential. That all changed when a team of astronauts and scientists on Mars made a discovery that would alter the course of history. While conducting routine geological surveys near the planet's northern polar ice caps, they unearthed a hidden structure, buried beneath layers of rock and ice, its origins a complete mystery. The team was initially baffled by what they found. The structure was not natural, nor was it anything they'd ever seen before. Smooth, metallic surfaces stretched over thousands of meters, glowing faintly with an eerie energy. At first, they believed it to be a natural formation, perhaps the remnants of a long-lost asteroid or comet. But as they dug deeper, their instruments began to detect strange energy readings. This was no accident of nature. It was a relic of something, or someone, long forgotten. The discovery immediately sent shockwaves through the scientific community and the world's governments. A massive excavation effort was launched, with Earth's finest minds and engineers called in to study the object. The structure was buried too deeply for conventional means of exploration, so they had to develop new technologies just to reach the heart of it. After weeks of painstaking work, they uncovered a massive chamber deep within the structure. Inside, they found a set of alien devices, advanced machinery, inscriptions on the walls, and what appeared to be a data storage device. Within days, the initial excitement began to wane, replaced by a tense urgency. The artifact had been carefully examined, but no one could make sense of the alien language or technologies. It was as though the civilization that created it had vanished without a trace. Only one thing was clear: the artifact contained information, vast amounts of data that could propel humanity to the next stage of its evolution. But how to access it? Then, one night, while a small team of researchers worked tirelessly to decode the alien symbols, something extraordinary happened. A surge of energy pulsed from the device, and a signal was emitted, faint but unmistakable. It was a beacon, a call from the far reaches of space. Within moments, astronomers across the globe confirmed the signal was not of human origin, and it was directed from a distant star system, far beyond the capabilities of any Earth-bound technology. The coordinates pointed to a place that no human had ever visited, a location beyond the bounds of the Milky Way. At first, the world was paralyzed by the implications. Were they alone in the universe? And if not, who, or what, had sent the signal? Earth's political leaders convened urgently, recognizing that this was the most significant event in human history. It was clear that humanity was being invited to join something greater. But what would this invitation bring? The risk of encountering something hostile was high. Still, humanity had always prided itself on its curiosity, its desire to explore, and now there was no turning back. As the Stellar Initiative was formed, a global mission was set in motion. Ships would be built, resources pooled, and humanity's greatest minds and warriors sent to follow the signal to its source. But the question that lingered was this: what awaited them on the other side of the stars? The first ship to take the monumental leap beyond the solar system was named the Horizon, a symbol of humanity's bold vision for the future. The crew, a mix of elite astronauts, engineers, scientists, and military officers, had been carefully selected. They represented the pinnacle of human achievement, each person chosen for their unique skills and resilience. Among them was Captain Elena Reyes, a veteran astronaut known for her calm under pressure and sharp strategic mind. Alongside her was Dr. No Fells, a leading astrophysicist, whose knowledge of alien technology had made him one of the foremost experts on deciphering the mysterious artifact. Together, they would chart humanity's first journey beyond the known universe. The mission was ambitious, with a primary goal: to follow the coordinates from the alien signal and reach the distant star system in the Andromeda Galaxy. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering, powered by the newly discovered faster-than-light technology derived from the alien artifact. It was humanity's greatest achievement, capable of pushing the boundaries of space travel in ways once thought impossible. As the Horizon prepared for launch, there was an electric sense of anticipation on Earth. The world watched in awe as the ship ascended into the sky, the roar of its engines a reminder that the impossible had just become reality. With a final burst of speed, the ship jumped beyond the solar system, entering the void between stars. The crew experienced the sensation of space itself bending, twisting, as the ship traversed vast distances in an instant. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had fractured. When they emerged from the jump, the crew was greeted by an alien sky, distant stars shimmering in ways they had never seen before. They had arrived in an unfamiliar sector of space, far from any known galaxy. The sight was both breathtaking and intimidating, an expanse of darkness that stretched endlessly in all directions. But the crew had no time to marvel at the view. The beacon they had followed was growing stronger, its signal becoming clearer and more distinct. It led them directly to the source. What they discovered was a colossal, ancient structure drifting in the cold void. It was a derelict space station, but unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Its design was staggeringly advanced, with smooth surfaces and geometric shapes that seemed to defy the laws of physics. It dwarfed the Horizon, and its sheer size made the crew feel insignificant in comparison. As they approached, sensors picked up an array of strange readings. The station appeared dormant, but something was alive within it, a low, pulsating energy that hinted at a hidden power. Captain Reyes ordered the crew to board the station and investigate. Armed with advanced tools and weapons, they made their way through the darkened corridors of the station, their footsteps echoing eerily. It was clear that the station had once been occupied by a highly advanced species, but it had long since been abandoned. The walls were etched with strange symbols, a language that even Dr. Fells couldn't immediately decipher. Yet, as they explored deeper, they began to discover more artifacts, holographic recordings, energy readings, and pieces of alien technology that seemed both familiar and unsettlingly foreign. The deeper they went, the more the crew realized they were not just exploring an alien relic. They were standing on the edge of something far larger, a discovery that could rewrite everything humanity knew about the universe. But as they continued to unlock its secrets, they began to sense that someone, was watching them. Unseen, yet undeniably present, the station's ancient systems hummed to life, triggering a new wave of signals, and for the first time, the crew felt the weight of their mission. They were not alone in the vastness of space. The question was no longer if there were other intelligent species in the universe. It was who, or what, was waiting for them in the dark. The moment the crew of the Horizon deciphered the first of the holographic records, the atmosphere aboard the ship shifted. The recording revealed a message, a warning, but it was fragmented and unclear. It spoke of an ancient race, the Arimi, who had once explored the stars, only to vanish in the wake of their own technological hubris. But the message was more than just history. It contained an ominous statement: the gate will open, but the path will be watched. Captain Reese stared at the screen, a chill running down her spine. It was as if the message had been intended for them, for humanity, as though the Arimi had known that one day someone would discover their station and unlock their secrets. The feeling of being watched intensified with each passing moment. Every creak of the station's decaying frame, every flicker of the holographic projections, felt deliberate, unnatural. Dr. Fells, normally calm and logical, was growing increasingly uneasy. The deeper they explored, the more he began to sense that they had stumbled upon something far darker than ancient history. As they made their way through the labyrinthine halls of the station, they discovered more and more evidence of the Arimi's downfall. An entire section of the station was devoted to records of failed experiments, dangerous weapons, and strange devices meant to manipulate the fabric of space itself. but there was a chilling pattern emerging. The more the Arimi had advanced, the more they had retreated into isolation, driven by an unknown fear. Then, without warning, the station's energy systems began to pulse with an unsettling rhythm. The crew's instruments went haywire, displaying readings that no one could explain. At first, they thought it was a glitch, but the feeling of being watched grew impossible to ignore. Reyes ordered the crew to retreat to the docking bay, but as they turned to leave, the station's doors sealed shut, locking them in. It was then that the first attack came. A shadow, something humanoid but not human, lunged at them from the darkness. It moved with impossible speed, its form flickering in and out of visibility, a ghostly figure made of shifting shadows and energy. The crew fought back, but their weapons had little effect. The entity seemed to phase through the walls, appearing in different places at will. In a desperate scramble, they managed to escape into an auxiliary hallway, sealing the door behind them. Captain Reyes was furious, her mind racing. This wasn't just a stray entity, a malfunctioning piece of the station. It was deliberate. The Arimi had built this station as a way to monitor the galaxy, but someone, or something, had been left behind to guard it. A silent sentinel, waiting for an intruder to trigger its activation. The crew wasn't just facing an alien relic, they were facing a deadly force, a rogue element that had somehow survived the Arimi's fall. The strange figure, the shadow that had attacked them, was not a random anomaly, it was the first of many. The crew began to suspect that the station itself was not simply abandoned, but had been deliberately hidden away, its secrets meant to remain locked for eternity. What had the Arimi feared so much, and why was humanity now caught in the crossfire? As they huddled in the dark, strategizing their next move, Dr. Fells pieced together the implications of the message. The gate will open. Could it be that the Arimi had intentionally left clues behind, knowing someone would come? Or had their enemies, those who had caused their downfall, placed the gate here, waiting for a new species to enter, one they could manipulate or destroy? The true nature of their mission had shifted. No longer were they just explorers. They were now targets in a deadly game, and the stakes were far higher than they could have imagined. As the crew of the Horizon regrouped, their brief moment of respite ended with the horrifying realization that their survival depended on more than just their ingenuity. It would take everything they had to endure the challenges ahead. The rogue entity that had attacked them was only the first sign that the station was far from abandoned. They were trapped in a place that seemed designed to test their limits, a trial that would push them to the brink of their physical and mental endurance. The doors to the docking bay remained sealed, and the station's systems hummed ominously, as if aware of their every movement. Captain Reyes made the decision to press forward. They had no choice but to uncover more of the station's mysteries, hoping to find some clue about how to escape, or, at the very least, to understand what they were truly up against. Yet, as they ventured deeper into the structure, it became clear that the trial they faced was not simply survival, it was a test, and it was watching them. The crew first encountered the trial in a vast underground chamber. It was an arena, a place of warping architecture and shifting walls that seemed to change as they moved through it. The atmosphere grew thicker, the air heavier with each step. The walls seemed to close in on them, and strange mechanical noises echoed from every corner. Then, without warning, massive doors slammed shut behind them, and the floor beneath their feet began to shift. A low, rumbling sound reverberated throughout the chamber, and suddenly, enormous creatures emerged from the shadows. These creatures were unlike anything the crew had ever seen. They were predators, their bodies built for hunting and survival, with long limbs and powerful jaws that gleamed in the dim light. But there was something else about them, an intelligence behind their eyes, a cunning that went beyond the typical instincts of a wild animal. The crew had to fight not just to survive, but to outwit these beasts, to find their weaknesses and strike before they were overwhelmed. As the crew battled the creatures, it became clear that these trials were no ordinary tests of strength or skill. The station itself seemed to be actively designing challenges to break them, forcing them to push past their limits. They faced environmental hazards, dangerous gas leaks, collapsing platforms, and traps triggered by their movements. Every time they thought they had gained an advantage, the environment shifted again, testing their adaptability. Dr. Fells was the first to realize that the trial wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The creatures they faced, the environmental dangers, the shifting landscape, everything seemed designed to wear them down. Each challenge pushed them to question their decisions, to doubt their ability to continue. As the crew struggled to regroup, Fells pointed out that these tests were not simply about survival, they were about proving their resilience. The true challenge wasn't defeating the monsters or escaping the traps. It was about staying united, trusting in each other, and holding on to the belief that they could overcome whatever the station threw at them. As the final battle against the creatures raged, Captain Reyes knew that the true test was coming. They had survived these initial challenges, but the deeper they went into the station, the more the trials seemed to intensify. The Irimi had left this test behind for a reason, and now they had to prove themselves worthy of whatever knowledge or power lay at the end of the path. Exhausted but resolute, the crew prepared for the next phase of the trial. The station had not finished with them yet, and neither had the mysterious enemy watching them from the shadows. The trials had taken their toll on the crew, but they had managed to survive, and now, as they ventured deeper into the station's heart, they stumbled upon something unexpected, a vast, hidden chamber unlike any they had seen before. The room was filled with strange, glowing symbols that pulsed with an energy both alien and familiar. In the center, standing before them like silent sentinels, were the Irimi themselves. The figures were tall and ethereal, their features obscured by flowing robes of shimmering light. They were humanoid, but their presence was unlike anything the crew had encountered. The beings exuded a sense of ancient wisdom, their gazes piercing and timeless. It was clear that these were not mere remnants of a lost civilization, but an active, living force, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And that moment had arrived. Captain Reyes, though exhausted and on edge, maintained her composure. The crew was gathered behind her, tense but ready. She took a step forward, her voice steady as she addressed the Irimi. "We're here to understand your legacy. What happened to your people? Why did you leave this station? And what is the true purpose of this trial?" One of the Irimi stepped forward, its voice calm but filled with an undeniable authority. "We are the remnants of a great civilization. Once, we were explorers, like you, charting the stars and seeking knowledge. But we were blinded by our own ambition. Our reach exceeded our grasp, and we brought upon ourselves the collapse of our empire. The trial you have undergone is not of our design. It is a warning, a necessary test for those who would follow in our footsteps." Captain Reyes' brow furrowed. "A warning? For what?" The Irimi's eyes flickered with a strange sadness. "You were chosen to inherit our legacy, to carry forward what we could not. We have watched you, humanity, from the edge of the galaxy. You are the only species we have seen in millennia capable of breaking the cycle we once fell into. But before you can wield the knowledge of the stars, you must prove yourselves worthy." Dr. Fells stepped forward, his mind racing. "Worthy? What does that mean? What do you want from us?" The Irimi extended a long, slender hand toward the crew, their voice now tinged with urgency. "We offer you the key to our technology, the knowledge of the galaxy's deepest secrets, but it is not without its price. To accept this knowledge, you must pledge to carry our mantle, to ensure that the mistakes we made are never repeated. You must evolve, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. If you fail, if you cling to the old ways of division and destruction, then you will fall as we did." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The crew stood in stunned silence, processing the enormity of the offer. What the Irimi proposed was no mere gift. It was a challenge, a pact that would demand the very best of humanity. It would require unity, adaptability, and the ability to evolve in ways they had never imagined. Captain Reyes turned to her crew, her mind racing. She knew this decision could alter the course of humanity's future forever. Accepting the Irimi's offer could grant them untold power, but it could also come with consequences they couldn't foresee. The silence stretched on, broken only by the soft hum of the Irimi's technology. As she turned back to face the ancient beings, Captain Reyes knew that the choice before them was more than just about technology. It was about the soul of humanity itself. The future was at stake, and the path they chose now would determine whether they would rise as the inheritors of the stars or fall into the same darkness that had consumed the Irimi. The Irimi's offer weighed heavily on the crew. The idea of inheriting the knowledge and technology of an ancient, advanced civilization was tempting, but the responsibility that came with it was overwhelming. Captain Reyes could feel the tension among her crew, the fear and the excitement intermingling as they deliberated. The decision was not just theirs to make, it was a crossroads for humanity itself. But as they grappled with the offer, not everyone agreed on the path forward. Dr. Fells, despite his intellectual curiosity and fascination with the Irimi's technology, began to voice doubts. The more he thought about their words, the more he feared that accepting the Irimi's offer would be a dangerous path. The cost of power, he believed, might be more than they were prepared to pay. We've seen what this knowledge did to the Irimi, he argued. Their civilization collapsed because they were too focused on their technological superiority. We risk becoming the same, obsessed with control and mastery, blind to the dangers we don't understand. Captain Reyes listened, but her resolve remained firm. She believed that humanity could learn from the Irimi's mistakes and use the knowledge to avoid their fate, but the division among the crew was growing. The temptation to take the power of the Irimi and use it to shape the future was too great for some. A small faction within the crew, led by Commander Samir Voss, argued that the offer should be accepted without hesitation. Voss had always been a pragmatist, and to him, the Irimi's power was an opportunity they couldn't afford to ignore. "We're standing at the threshold of a new era," Voss said, his voice sharp and insistent. "This isn't just about us. It's about ensuring humanity's place in the universe. If we turn this down, we risk falling behind, losing our chance to lead, to dominate. We can't afford to wait for the stars to come to us. We have to take control." The rebellion grew slowly at first. Voss and his supporters began to secretly discuss ways to circumvent Rey's leadership, believing that their vision was the only one capable of securing humanity's future. They saw themselves as the true heirs to the Irimi's legacy, convinced that humanity was strong enough to wield the power without falling into the same traps that had destroyed the ancient race. But as their secret meetings continued, the crew began to notice a shift in the atmosphere on the horizon. Tensions were rising, and the unity that had once held the team together began to crack. Captain Reyes knew that the situation was spiraling out of control. The factions on her ship had grown too powerful, and she could no longer ignore the mutiny brewing beneath the surface. She gathered the crew for a final meeting, hoping to reach a consensus before the conflict escalated further. But as soon as the meeting began, it became clear that not everyone was there to listen. Voss stood at the front of the room, flanked by a handful of his supporters. His eyes burned with determination. "We've made our decision," he declared. "We will accept the Irimi's offer and unlock the full potential of their technology. Reyes, you failed to see the truth. We cannot be content with mere survival. We must rise above our limits, and we will." Rhea's heart sank as she realized the scale of the rebellion. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a challenge to her authority, to everything she had fought for. She stood tall, her voice steady. "I will not let this ship, this crew, become the tools of those who seek power for its own sake. The Irimi's knowledge cannot be wielded blindly. It will destroy us if we are not careful." The room erupted in chaos. Voss's supporters drew weapons, their faces hardened with resolve. Rhea's crew was split down the middle, some remaining loyal to her, while others backed Voss. The battle was no longer just about the Irimi's offer, it was about control, about who would lead humanity into the future. In the moments that followed, the crew was plunged into civil war. The rebellion would determine the fate of humanity, but neither side could see the true danger lurking just beyond the station's walls. The Irimi had warned them of the consequences, but the price of power was more than they could have imagined. As the rebellion raged, the real trial was just beginning, and this time, humanity's survival would not depend on technology, it would depend on their ability to work together in the face of forces far greater than themselves. The battle aboard the Horizon was brutal. The crew, once united in purpose, had splintered into factions, each with its own vision of humanity's future. Captain Reyes fought desperately to regain control, but the rebellion led by Commander Voss had taken root too deeply. The ship's corridors echoed with the sounds of conflict, blaster fire, shouting, and the clattering of boots on metal. The once carefully planned mission had devolved into chaos. Voss's thwarters had seized key sections of the ship, including the communication hub, rendering Reyes and her loyalists isolated and vulnerable. The rebellion's momentum grew as more crew members swayed to Voss' side, drawn in by the promise of power, control, and a new order that would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. The Irimi's offer was now a beacon of hope for those who believed that only by wielding the ancient technology could they ensure humanity's dominance in the universe. Reyes knew that the rebellion wasn't just a matter of survival, it was a fight for the soul of humanity. The Irimi had warned them that they would need to evolve, to prove themselves worthy of the knowledge they sought. But now, as the ship spiraled into civil war, Reyes began to question whether humanity was truly ready for such power. Could they rise above their petty conflicts and unite in the face of the unknown, or was the temptation of control too great to resist? The station, still looming in the distance, was an ever-present reminder of the stakes. It offered the power to reshape the galaxy, but it also carried a dangerous legacy. Reyes had always believed that humanity could handle the responsibility, that they could learn from the mistakes of the Irimi. But as the rebellion raged on, the crew's darker impulses began to surface. In their lust for power, they had forgotten the fundamental lesson the Irimi had left behind, that knowledge without wisdom could destroy everything. Dr. Fells, torn between his loyalty to Reyes and his fascination with the Irimi's technology, had become increasingly unsettled. He had spent countless hours studying the data, the symbols, the alien technology, but now he realized that unlocking its full potential might have consequences they hadn't foreseen. He could feel the weight of the station's history bearing down on him, and he feared that they were on the precipice of making the same mistakes the Irimi had. In a desperate attempt to stop the madness, Reyes called for one final confrontation. She knew that if she did not act quickly, the ship would be lost, both physically and morally. She gathered her loyalists and prepared to face Voss and his followers in a last-ditch effort to restore order. They would have to fight not only for control of the ship, but for the very future of humanity itself. As Reyes and her team made their way to the control room, they found the rebellion waiting for them. Voss stood at the helm, his eyes cold and calculating. "This doesn't have to be a fight, Elena," he said, his voice steady. "You're just too weak to see it. The Irimi's knowledge can elevate us beyond anything we've ever dreamed. Don't you want to be a part of that? Don't you see that we are the next step in evolution?" Reyes looked at him, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She had always believed in humanity's potential to rise above its flaws, but now, in the face of this rebellion, she wasn't sure what was left to fight for. The idea of power, of control, was seductive, but the cost was becoming clearer by the minute. She took a deep breath and addressed her crew, her voice unwavering. "The path we choose now will define who we are. We cannot let ambition blind us. Power without wisdom is nothing but a curse. We are not the Irimi, we are human, and we will forge our own future together. As the two sides stood poised for the final battle, the ship trembled. The station's systems began to hum with a new intensity, the energy readings spiking. Something was happening, something that neither side had anticipated. The true power of the Irimi was awakening, and the great unraveling of humanity's fate had only just begun. The crew, divided by their own desires and fears, now faced a force far beyond their control. The consequences of their choices would be felt throughout the galaxy, and the future of the species hung in the balance. The final confrontation aboard the Horizon was more than a battle for control of the ship. It was a battle for humanity's soul. Captain Reyes and her loyalists faced Commander Voss and his followers in the heart of the ship, where the very future of the species would be decided. The tension was palpable, the weight of the Irimi's legacy bearing down on them. As both sides prepared for the inevitable clash, the station around them began to stir with a strange, otherworldly energy. The systems hummed, the walls pulsed with light, and the air seemed to thicken as if the very fabric of reality was shifting. For a moment, everything stood still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Reyes could feel it, an unsettling awareness that something was about to happen, something beyond their understanding. The Irimi had warned them, but it was clear now that they had underestimated the true nature of the trial. It wasn't just about power, wisdom, or control. It was about survival in the face of forces far greater than themselves. Voss, standing at the helm, was resolute. His vision had never wavered. "This is our moment, Elena," he called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We can seize the future, shape it in our image. The Irimi's knowledge is ours for the taking, and we will be the masters of this galaxy. Don't let your fear blind you to what we could become." Reyes locked eyes with him, her resolve unshaken. "It's not fear, Voss. It's understanding. Power without restraint is destruction. We are not the Irimi. We must not let their mistakes define us." Before either side could make a move, the ship trembled once more. The station's energy began to coalesce into a single, intense pulse of light. From the core of the station, a massive holographic projection emerged, an image of the Irimi, their faces cold and distant. The figure spoke in a voice that reverberated through the ship, an echo of their ancient wisdom. "You stand at the crossroads," the voice intoned. "The trial has ended. The power of the stars is yours to wield, but it will not be given freely. You must choose. Will you embrace the legacy of the Irimi, with all its triumphs and failures, or will you forge a new path, one defined not by the past, but by your own choices?" The projection faded, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Reyes, heart racing, looked to her crew. Voss, too, stood motionless, as if the words had reached into him and shaken something deep within. "We have the knowledge," Reyes said softly, her voice steady despite the overwhelming weight of the moment. "But it's not the knowledge alone that will determine our future. It's the choices we make, the way we work together, the way we build a future based on understanding, not domination." Voss's expression faltered. He had fought for control, for the power that the Irimi's legacy promised, but the words of the ancient beings, the very foundation of their civilization, had struck a chord deep within him. His vision of domination seemed hollow in the face of the broader universe's complexity. For the first time, he began to see that perhaps the true strength of humanity lay not in bending the galaxy to their will, but in learning from the past and creating something entirely new. As the crew stood together, their divisions seemed to melt away. The path forward was not one of conquest, but of cooperation, a chance to learn from the mistakes of the Irimi and build a future where humanity could truly thrive in the stars, not as masters, but as stewards. With the final choice made, the ship's systems began to stabilize, and the hum of energy began to subside. The station's once oppressive atmosphere lightened, and the crew felt a shift, a sense of peace, as if they had passed through a dark storm and into the calm of the dawn. Humanity's future was no longer defined by the mistakes of the past. It was now a future shaped by their choices, their unity, and their capacity for growth. The stars were no longer distant and unattainable, they were within reach. As the horizon began its journey back to the galaxy, the crew looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. A new dawn had arrived for humanity, not as conquerors, but as explorers, united in their quest to learn, grow, and shape the future in their own image.